So we've got Liz, who's chairing this with me and driving the Zoom. And thank you, Liz, for all your skill in during the lockdown, understanding how Zoom works. And so if you've got any questions, you can ask Liz or she'll sort you out. And we've got Jessie, who's the operations manager at Community Energy South. She's in the background, making sure we're doing what we said we'd do. And also probably picking up all your questions, and hopefully we'll put a Q&A on the website afterwards and the presentations. And I should say as well that we video this session, and hopefully Liz has pressed the button to video, and that recording can be accessible, so you can access it afterwards for reference, and indeed go into our other masterclasses and have a rummage through on our website. And then we've got Nicola and Michael, and they're going to wave.
Hello.
So, hi guys, they are both very experienced community energy mentors who are supporting us in Hampshire and giving advice to 5 of the community energy groups that are here in this room, and so you'll know who they are. They are both directors of Made Energy, and Michael is director of Reading Hydro, and they've got great experience in fundraising and also running share offers for community energy groups. So I'm really excited that they're there. And there's a whole list of other speakers who are here in the background, not least Mike Culver from Hampshire County Council, who I'll pass over in a minute or so. Are you there, Mike?
Hi, Ollie, I'm here.
Great, just testing.
Good to see you. Thanks.
My heart nearly stopped then. It's like, oh no, Mike's not here, but you are here. Great. And then also there are a list of speakers. So the first session up to 3:15, we're going to give you an overview of where Hampshire are with their climate change strategy and with the pathway to net zero. I'll give you an overview of community energy, what other groups are doing across the region, and the kind of story of community energy and how we can support you in the Pathways programme. And we're going to hear from Nicola Davidson, who I've just introduced, from Made Energy, who give you an idea of getting a new community energy group started and linking in with the existing groups in Hampshire. And then we're going to hear from the wonderful Alison Zarecky from Sustainable Overton about community buy-in, and they've been working in Overton, Sustainable Overton, and really, you know, showing great example of how to take an interest in a community from about net zero and climate change and really start to get the community organised and action happening. And then we'll have a cup of tea, we'll have a break. So do fill your cups. And then the next session up to 5 o'clock is about hearing from the experts in the industry who we've tapped into. So the big solar co-op on solar and how, you know, how to look at rooftop solar, how it works and how to simplify it. Martin Heath from Basingstoke Energy Co-op, who's a great driver of climate change across Hampshire and the region, and great experience on decarbonising buildings, and Alex Rathmell on Toolkit, Esco in a box it's called, so simplifying, you know, getting started. And then we'll have a session with breakout groups where you can meet the different speakers and other mentors and other experienced people. We've got other experienced people will join that, and so you can ask questions. So and we can and then come back and hear from Michael and Nicola about the Pathways programme and funding. So hopefully that will give you an overview. So without further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Mike. I'll stop sharing, and Mike's leads up the climate change team at Hampshire County Council and has been working with us on the Pathways programme. So Mike, I'll stop sharing and move to the presentation.
Yeah, great, thank you. Before I do that, Michael, I think I've been disabled as a host. I wonder if you might be able to just add me back on, and then I can reshare my screen. Thank you.
Liz, so
Yeah,
that
I'm just looking at that.
Oh, thanks,
I
Liz.
don't know how that happened.
Yeah, we did try it beforehand. It seemed to be okay, didn't it? There we go. Yeah, I can see that now. So thank you for that.
so why Mike puts that up, just a reminder to everybody, if you've just joined, put in the chat where you're from so that we can try and match make you later on. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, Liz, can I just check that's working okay on your side?
It's great.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Lovely. Well, thank you very much for the introduction, Ollie. It's really great to be able to make it here today and speak to so many people engaged with this project in particular. My name is Mike Culver. I'm the Climate Change Delivery Manager at Hampshire County Council. And I've got a approximately 10-minute presentation today, which will run through the next 8 slides. With some time at the end for some questions. So please do kind of raise your hand and kind of ask me at the time if that's okay. I do have a couple of animations at the end, which I may be able to play depending on time, but if not, they will be circulated. The links to those will be circulated with this presentation. So really the presentation here focuses on and seeks to give you a flavour as to how the County Council is responding to climate change, and how really the project here with Community Energy South and the masterclass here today fits into the Hampshire County Council climate change strategy. So in summary, I'll just be covering the climate emergency and targets, our key principles, key sectors, of course, our kind of key partnerships and networks, strategic programs, community projects, of which one is here today, but we do have a few others for your interest you may already be aware of. I'd like to just touch on our expert stakeholder forum for climate change, so you're aware of our work program there, and just link into our next steps really. So you may already have heard some of this kind of before as you've been kind of getting more involved in the particular Community Energy South programme, or you might be aware kind of a bit broader. But I'll just give a bit of a summary as to the climate emergency and the targets that the County Council declared. So Hampshire County Council declared a climate emergency in summer 2019. And there was 2 targets set for both carbon neutrality by 2050. That was for both the Hampshire County Council owned estate and more significantly perhaps for the wider Hampshire County area. And also a second target to be prepared to be resilient to a 2 degrees C rise in temperature, which is quite unique actually as a local authority in kind of setting that resilience target. And so those 2 kind of really comprehensive targets, we feel, that demonstrate quite far-reaching, challenging leadership, really. So following the declaration of a climate emergency, we developed the Climate Change Strategy and Action Plan and launched that in the summer 2020. So the strategy provides kind of a clear framework for our kind of programs moving forwards, which I'll just summarise now in the next couple of slides. Again, all these slides will be provided after the masterclass, and indeed the links to the actual documents, etc., the detail. So the strategy has a number of key principles. So these are really kind of considerations that will underpin kind of the County Council approach moving forwards. These are the carbon hierarchy. So of course, we'll be seeking to avoid, reduce, replace, offset any actions in relation to carbon. Co-benefits, that is, the actions that deliver co-benefits, such as reducing road congestion, improving air quality, will be prioritised. The strategy needs to be proportionate, affordable, and equitable. Basically, every decision that we take has to be in line with public good as a local authority, and therefore will be adhering to these principles. We'll be following national government policy and funding. So of course the 2050 targets are currently aligned to the overarching government target, which you'll be aware of. But in particular around that, we need to be mindful of wider kind of funding and policy considerations, And the County Council will seek to accelerate where appropriate, which of course link into kind of the policy and the funding considerations. And the strategy also has a key principle of digital and innovation. So this is really recognizing that digital IT has a significant place for responding to the climate change in the future. It's going to be a key enabler into the future, bringing opportunities to become low carbon, more resilient, and so we'll be prioritizing actions around digital and innovation. So in addition to the key principles, the County Council also has kind of outlined its kind of strategic priorities. These are kind of the key sectors which are all impacted and where kind of emissions and resilience needs to be built into. So this includes our organisational emissions and resilience. So as I said previously, the carbon neutrality target for 2050 is not only for the internal emissions, but also for the Hampshire County-wide emissions. But we do have our teams in our business services section who are doing and have done a lot of work kind of on our own Hampshire County Council emissions. Transport is another key sector. Residential, buildings and infrastructure, energy generation and distribution, waste and circular economy, natural environment, and business and green economy. So Hampshire's main emissions are from industry, transport and residential sectors. Although the County Council does not have complete control over all of these kind of emissions within these areas, we recognise that working in partnership is going to be key to kind of getting some outcomes and working towards kind of Hampshire-wide targets. Some of the strategic programmes, however, are already kind of underway across the County Council with various teams and departments, include within transport. So I have colleagues working on the new local transport plan. So this basically seeks to reduce the need to travel, increase the uptake of walking, cycling and public transport, and supporting the EV agenda. We're doing and undertaking actions indeed kind of within the residential sectors key sector. We have a number of community projects which I'll come on into in a later slide. The main principles around this include reducing energy usage, increasing energy efficiency, and switching to low carbon renewable sources of energy. And another kind of key sector and programme already underway is business and green economy. So here we're actually undertaking some work with the New Economics Foundation to develop a roadmap for the green recovery. So the New Economics Foundation is the UK's leading think tank promoting social, economic and environmental justice to transform the economy. So we're really working with this consultancy here to kind of really identify kind of the opportunities for development within this area, particularly following obviously COVID-19. So a number of the kind of strategic areas are already undertaking these actions with, but as previously mentioned, absolutely understand that we need to work well in partnership and with networks to achieve influence in the other sectors. So key partnerships and networks that we work with really, in particular the Hampshire 2050 partnership. So this is a partnership of all the Hampshire leaders and chief executives of local authorities across Hampshire to provide kind of oversight and kind of political steer. We're working with the Hampshire District and Borough Councils through our Hampshire Climate Change Officers Group, wider Hampshire public sector organisations, such as the Public Sector Sustainability Development Group. That includes the NHS hospitals, universities, MOD organisations, for example. We also lobby and influence national government through our networks and memberships, for example, through ADEPT, which is the Association of Directors of Environment, Economy, Planning and Transport, through the Local Adaptation Advisory Panel, through the UK 100, which is part of the County Council's network specifically focused on kind of climate change, and of course working with residents, communities, particularly through our expert stakeholder forum. So our expert stakeholder forum, which has been set up, really is an advisory forum which meets quarterly, established to support our work. It's made up of our key sectors and community groups, such as our community project providers, which I'll touch on in just a minute, and others including SSE, SGN, Hampshire Climate Action Network, universities, Friends of the Earth, Extinction Rebellion. Really a wide conglomeration of kind of key stakeholders really to help us kind of work through our strategy and action plan. We're currently developing specific work with this group in relation to data and our kind of baselining, which kind of helps frame the strategy. And we're also undertaking a strategic energy landscape review with one of the members in particular, which should give rise to more detailed work in the future. So some of the community projects that we are already working with, we've developed and now delivering around the residential sector, include telephone and online advice. This is with the Environment Centre, charity down in Southampton, who are providing climate change and also kind of wider sustainability advice to Hampshire residents. We are undertaking the Hampshire Solar Together scheme, which perhaps some of you will already be aware of, engage with perhaps. This is with the company iChooser. So iChooser, they provide a group buying scheme, in this case for solar PV and batteries. So they have run a reverse auction to try and to ensure really competitive prices, and they can also ensure kind of high quality solar panels from their chosen suppliers through their process. So we're helping with the rollout of that and have 8,000 Hampshire residents signed up to that to date. We're also working with the Greening campaign, which again, I wonder if a number of people on the call today may have heard of as well. So the Greening campaign is a grassroots project which reaches out to all Hampshire communities really to really engage and encourage individual household level action. It's a phased campaign, so from kind of the small scale individual projects all the way up to kind of the community-wide action planning and indeed linking into community energy. We're currently also developing phase 2 of the Greening campaign with the Greening campaign around health and well-being, public health consultants, rewilding with the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust, and retrofit. So looking at some examples there with the Sustainability Centre. And of course, we're also, as Ollie introduced at the very beginning, have this project here with Community Energy South, the Community Energy Pathway Finding Project. And it's great so many are on the call today as part of this masterclass, as you will have encountered already, no doubt. You know, it's a very kind of technical area, so it's great to have some experts on the call today to hopefully be able to facilitate and help out kind of where the questions may be, and to really kind of share that best practice. You know, community energy and indeed renewable energy generation is one area in particular in Hampshire, which we're hoping to increase. Is currently less than 3%. So any actions that can be undertaken with regards to community energy, any kind of pilot projects and demonstration projects to prove the concept would be absolutely fantastic to kind of carry forward. So just kind of touching on to our next steps really, in addition to kind of continuing to work on all of that, we're also rolling out and embedding climate change mitigation and adaptation decision-making tools across the County Council. So these are a couple of tools really, which for all key decisions moving forwards from April indeed this year, everyone, all teams, staff across the County Council need to be considering the principles of climate change mitigation and adaptation, again relating to our two targets within their decision making. We'll be monitoring the progress of the strategy and the action plan for an autumn cabinet, and continue to develop the strategic programs which are outlined. And of course, we're continuing to work, support and develop programs with partners, community projects, expert stakeholder forum, etc. So that was the last slide. As I said previously, there's a lot of information there, but for even more of the detail, I've added in a number of links here to the to kind of our web pages, which we're really using to host all our information, all our latest updates. So please do have a look there, in particular if you're interested in any of the other community projects to possibly get involved with, please do let me know. I probably won't run the animations there because I think we're probably come up to about 15 minutes. So, well, if I do have enough time, if I can take a few questions for a couple of minutes, that'd be fab.
Well, I don't know what in case Ollie hasn't seen, there are questions from Sue Bailey and Sally Yolden. I hope I pronounced your name right, Sally. So do unmute yourselves and ask your questions.
Hi, I'm Sue, and my question is how do parish councils fit in with Hampshire County Council's programme? What would you like to see us do?
Hi, Sue. Great. Yeah, thank you for your question. Can you hear me okay still?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Yeah, so thanks, Sue. So, well, absolutely, really with our community projects, first and foremost, I would suggest. So you probably received some emails perhaps from me kind of encouraging parish, town councils across Hampshire to kind of get involved with the various community projects. We've been doing these kind of linking up also with the district and borough councils at the same time, so we can have that really kind of joined up kind of working, so everyone's kind of aware with what we're doing. So certainly there are other projects there which you may be interested in addition to the Community Energy South project. I'd say specifically the Greening Campaign project. That's a great way for kind of, really local actions, communities to kind of to develop their kind of thoughts and programs and what they'd like to see in their local area in particular. So yeah, if you can take a look at the community projects on the website, or we can absolutely, pick it up offline. I can provide you some more kind of signposting opportunities, and we can go from there.
Great, thanks, Mike. Yeah, the Greening Campaign is a really good place to start for parishes. Now, listen, I'm gonna offer one more question because we're gonna make sure we try and keep to the agenda. So I've actually got one person here, Liz, with their hand up, which is Keith Oborn. Would you like to mute?
Yep,
Keith?
there we go. Hi, I actually put this in the chat to you, Mike, but
Oh, thank you.
So I've been interested in around the whole renewables field for about 15 years. We had a ground source heat pump 15 years ago. We have EVs. I've done a little bit of work locally on local public buildings with one of the guys from BES Coop. All of these programs you mentioned sound great, but I've never heard of them. How are they publicised?
Well, thank you. So,
if I haven't heard of them, then how come how's the general public going to hear of them?
We've done. We do obviously communications via kind of the website, social media, that type of thing for a number of our projects. But also, I have specifically for all of the projects, I believe, mailed out to all Hampshire parish and town councils. So hopefully, you would have received something on there.
I've been on our parish council for the last 3 years. We've had nothing.
And it's a stakeholder forum. So I tell you what, I'm going to leave you to discuss this in the chat, okay? Because we're going to be giving a lot of information. I don't want to miss out on that.
Yeah, that's grand.
Thank you very much, Mike.
We'll pick that up definitely, Keith. So thank you for that. And thank you, Ollie. Ollie, I'm sorry, I can't stay myself for the rest of the session. But I will be picking up kind of the chat questions that need response and be linked into proceedings otherwise. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
So if you stop sharing.
Bear with me.
Ollie, you can probably, you're speaking next. If you start to share your screen, you'll probably override Mike.
That's the ticket. Great. Right, so I'll just give you a little, I'm going to run through an introduction about community energy, just to set the scene about the Community Energy Pathways Programme and what community energy means. So just so you know, we were set up in 2013, Community Energy South, as a regional support group for community energy. We mentored 12 new groups between 2011 and 2013 down in across Sussex, and those 12 groups are still at different levels operating. Some employ over 10 people, some are retired and are volunteer groups, and a whole variety, but it amounts to over 20 megawatts of projects that they have, and a good sort of 20 million pounds worth of renewables projects that cover fuel poverty awareness, heat projects, solar, and education projects. So I'll just give you some examples going through. And so we look to support community energy groups to network so that they support each other because they're cooperatives. We do a fair bit of lobbying to government, to BES, about renewable energy, and we link in with the national organisation Community Energy England, who do a lot of lobbying as well. And we look to capacity build for community energy groups because ultimately the climate emergency is happening. You know, government have just done ambitious targets for 2035, and we see local energy playing a very big part in that, and we have done, and our networks for the past 10 years. So, you know, it's becoming a lot more real now, and we want to support communities to do this, to do community energy, but also learn from others. And in Hampshire, you have some great resource and some really good examples of community energy groups, so that we'll link you up with. So a little bit about community energy. Well, I've kind of covered that, but it's about people coming together, and it's very people focused within your community to reduce energy, to buy energy, use less fossil fuels and transition off fossil fuels, and look at heat and power and transport as well. And if you like, this is the face of community energy, and Esco in Lewis even put it on their Lewis pound. So, you know, solar farms, the picture in the middle is up in Aldershot, where a community energy led project built the first solar project to connect to the railways, providing sunbeams. And in the bottom left-hand corner, North Kensington Community Energy is in the shadow of Grenfell, and it's a community energy group that was set up there. So, and sort of it covers both old and young, but we would like a lot more young people working in community energy, and they're starting to come forward. Back in 2018 and 2019, in the kind of core area of Sussex and Kent and a little bit in Hampshire, this is what community energy kind of looked like after Community Energy South had supported the network. So the green dots are community energy groups that are operating. The red dots are energy champions that are funded to work in their communities to provide independent energy advice. And the purple dots was a scheme to work with faith and power, so faith groups across the region that was funded by UK Power Networks. So in all, at this stage in 2018, 2019, there were 21 community energy groups across the southeast, and the energy champions were reaching about 2,000 vulnerable homes, giving one-to-one energy advice, which was really amazing. So, you know, based on that sort of foundation, we are trying to scale up community. And we put together a roadmap. Now on the Hampshire website, you can go in and find out all about community energy and our toolkit. It's a step-by-step guide. I'll give you the link in a minute. But basically, there's a process to that, and you're going to learn about that today. and where to start and how to set up and what funding there is available, and get a project up and running. So we do an awful lot in building partnerships across the Southeast, and and working closely with Hampshire County Council was a big part of that. Also with Essex across the South Downs National Park and other local authorities that we're starting to talk to look at these pathways. And also the electricity network operators and the gas operators and the regional energy hub that is now in place across the Southeast to support this type of work and link in with the government. So based on that, well, that's a lovely music in the background. Can someone mute? Thank you, Liz. A sweeping mute. So there are 5 regional energy hubs across the UK that have been set up. We're in the Greater Southeast Energy Hub that works like a donut around London. It doesn't take in London. And within that, they have a regional energy strategy. We'll share our slides, and community energy is very much part of that. So do link in with your energy hub, be aware of them. They're linked into the LEPs and the local authorities. And yeah, this is the link to, on the Community Energy South website, you can go into our pathways and look at our toolkit, and yeah, that gives you an idea of that. Okay, I'll just give you some examples of community energy projects. So back in 2012, there were the first school projects, community energy school projects, where solar was put in school. And back in 2019, we audited this, and there were over 84 schools that had solar on them. It's complicated putting solar on schools. You know, you have to deal with the diocese or the local authority and unravel it, but it's really worthwhile. And a lot of community energy groups like starting with their local schools and community buildings. And the table at the top shows the ebbs and flows of doing this. But we've kind of, it was complicated to begin with. It's got a lot easier. So, you know, link in with other groups. And community energy and heat. There's 2 really amazing projects happening over in Sussex that you can link into. BESCO, who are kind of energy services co-op that give one-to-one advice of developing a heat network for a village that's owned by one landowner. And Communiheat is run by Esco, and Community Energy South were involved with this, where we're looking at a whole village going to net zero and coming off oil. And that's, you know, electrifying the heat and the transport and developing a plan for a whole village to transition. And that's a really good example that you can share from for parishes. So there's lots of options for community energy. I'm a little bit behind time, so I'm not going to dwell on them for too long, but they could be solar on buildings. You could look after your residents. You could start up an EV sharing scheme. You could look at a hydro project if you've got a river. You could run energy events in your village. You could bring in local suppliers and just knowledge everybody up. You can look at your carbon footprint. You know, have a target of offsetting your community energy usage or your carbon usage. So there's lots of ideas, and it's in our toolkit. Now, also we link in with Community Energy England, which is our national body, and they have amazing state of the sector reports. So if you want to dig into the detail and look at what other organisations are doing and look at this at scale, there's about 300 operational community energy groups across England. This is a really good place to start. So just a bit of fun. Dalai Lama has a saying, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. And yeah, so I can agree with that. Also sleeping with a gecko, but so that's just a thought. Keep in touch, go to our website. We have a newsletter that's every month. You can register your group so we know you're out there. Get involved with the debate, share newsletter items, and join our masterclasses. We do them every month, and become a partner organisation. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much. Probably looking at the timescales, I'm going to pass you straight on to Alison, and I'll have a look at the chat and see if I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Ollie. So while Alison's setting herself up, can you tell Sally DeGay of Church Crookham Parish Council how to access the toolkit?
I can, Sally. I'll put it in the chat.
You all right there, Alison?
Yes.
Great.
I'm updating the sharing options. Is that okay? It's coming up with, can everyone share screen?
Can everyone share screen?
Yeah, it says who can share, only the host or all participants.
You should just be
I
able
don't know why it's coming up for me.
No, so if you just click on share,
it's not.
You should just be able to share.
Oh, okay.
No,
is that working?
Yeah.
There we go. Yes, let's just get rid of that. Okay.
Thanks, Alison.
Fantastic. Lovely. Great. Okay. Right. So I'm going to take you through what our energy group has done in terms of community engagement activities. So hopefully I'll sort of share all the learning that we've had, and hopefully that will be of use to people who are about to start out on this journey. So just a little bit of background. We are a parish council led group. So I'm a parish councillor, and I only became a parish councillor in September 2019 when we declared the climate emergency. And if it makes any of you feel any more comfortable, I didn't really know much about a climate emergency, and I certainly didn't know anything about community energy. So I've had to be on a very, very steep learning curve, which has been fascinating. And our energy group, we've just received our RCEF grant from the South East Energy Hub, which we got through in March. So we're progressing a project of a number of rooftop solar PV, probably 0.5 megawatt, we're hoping, which we're looking to install in Q4. So I'm going to go through the activities that we did in order to get that far. And then I've done a slide on, because obviously this doesn't stop, the community engagement will continue. So I'll share that as well. So the first step is to clarify what you're actually trying to achieve. We felt there were 3 key priorities. The first thing is you need to be able to demonstrate that you have community support if you're putting in an RCEF bid, because clearly if you don't have it, it's going to be a waste of time. So we felt that was really important. And the second thing is you're looking for potential investors, because you will then need to raise the money through a share offer to fund the project. And then the other one I've added in is generally just raising awareness of what community energy is and what the benefits could be to a community, because that's a huge selling point. And we really found that hardly anyone knew exactly what it was or had heard of it even. So we had to make sure we could explain that clearly to people. And once we had explained it, they were very excited. The second step is then to identify the stakeholders. Now, stakeholders are really anyone who is potentially interested, and it's pretty much everyone. So it might be local landowners or farmers, or business owners that might be the site owners that you're looking to put solar on. But it's also your local councils. You know, they want us to be doing this because we're the people on the ground in the parish councils that have the links and the networks. energy bodies, obviously Community Energy South and such like. This is, we're all trying to achieve the same thing. Obviously residents, because they're the people who will hopefully be owners of the energy and who will benefit from the pool. And you're looking for anyone who might be an investor. There's a huge amount of support and guidance out there and information, and also funding for your investment. So everyone you talk to is very generous, and they also point you in the right direction of other things that you need to read and find out about. So keep learning, keep reading, and use all of your networks. And this was the main thing that we did. We spent a huge amount of time talking to people, finding out what their concerns or queries were, but just to make sure that everyone in the parish knew what we were doing, understood what the importance of it, and was going to be supportive. And that is very time consuming, but it's time well spent, I felt. So this is just a sort of pictorial representation of who we targeted. So obviously our residents, any kind of landowners, we had individual face-to-face meetings with as many of them as we could. A lot of our community buildings, we wanted to start off with the community buildings, actually, the school, the church, the town halls. So, and some of them are tenanted, so you need to meet with the tenant and the owner to make sure everyone has bought into it. So that was quite time consuming, going to lots of meetings and giving my pitch, my presentation. And I got them all terribly excited about it, only to then find that most of our buildings were not really suitable because they just simply didn't use enough electricity, or they had poor quality roofs. But the good thing is it wasn't time wasted, because they're all very supportive, and hopefully they might then become investors. Working with the local church and the local school and the local sports association was also very important, because again, all the people there, they're key pillars of the community, and they tend to also be on lots of different, they might be governors, they might be borough councillors, they might be county councillors. So just keep networking and get the message out there to as many people as possible. Yes, it seems really obvious, but ensure that you can explain it. Have your elevator pitch ready, so that when you encounter, your whoever you might be talking to, that they can really understand. Because actually, I think that community energy, although it's a simple concept, it's actually quite complex when you think about it. And we did manage to bamboozle inadvertently some people on the parish council, because they hadn't quite understood exactly what it was, and we had to make sure they did, because clearly they can't support it if they don't understand. So you'll also find a lot of people have very strong opinions, and it may be because they have a lot of knowledge, it may be because they have a little bit of knowledge, or they've Googled it. So make sure you can understand and explain, the pros and cons of different things. Some people are desperate that we cover Overton in a wind farm, and other people are completely anti. So we did find people who are actually really supportive here. I was quite surprised that there weren't many people who were not supportive. The other thing you need to be able to do is to explain what a post-fit model looks like, because things have really changed since the removal of the fit. So that was an important point. So what kind of site makes a really good site, something that uses a lot of electricity, and has got a good roof space to match. So we made sure we provided the whole team with all these kind of Q&As that might crop up, because it's important, obviously, that you look professional and you know what you're talking about. Okay. The parish council is really important to engage with, because obviously for an RCEF bid, it needs to go through an organisation with a financial history. So a parish council is ideal. They were a little hesitant at first because they were worried about the responsibility of doing this. But actually, all they need to do is be a recipient for the funds. Once we've set up our BENCOM, we will take, they won't need to worry. So we've kept everyone very informed. We're going to have make sure we have at least one parish councillor on our board of directors. So again, make sure you have explained the process fully, and that everyone understands.
Thank you, Alison.
So what did we sorry?
Sorry, can I just interrupt you very quickly, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Just I'm just going to demystify some of your acronyms, if that's okay. So
Oh,
just,
sorry.
no, it's okay.
Again, you see, this is how you bamboozle people.
Exactly. So no, it's good. I'll give you a little bit of a breather, a sip of water. There are everybody. There's 3 acronyms that Alison, I've just heard her say. One is post-fit. So the feed-in tariff for solar energy has come to an end. So now there's no subsidies in solar. So, and what Alison was saying there was react to, what's next and how does the market adapt, which it is. The next one was RCEF, which is the Rural Community Energy Fund, which is a fund for groups to get feasibility studies undertaken. And there was another one, BENCOM, which is a type of cooperative. And why
Yes.
that's interesting is because a parish council is a charity, but if you had in a community a BENCOM sent next to it, or a community benefit society, then it can work alongside the parish council. So sorry to interrupt.
No, that's a very good point on it. And it just goes to show how easy it is to inadvertently bamboozle people by not explaining the simple things. So thank you for that. Right, so what did we actually do? We did an online questionnaire, which I'm happy to share in the chat. I've got some examples of that. And we covered energy efficiency as well as other things, because we weren't sure at this point what we were going to be doing. So we felt it was important to show buy-in, and it's a good metric to show how many people have answered it. We did a stall in the village centre with a display, which I think we could definitely have improved upon the display. We tried to have information on everything we could think of that people might want to know about. I think we could have done with some better diagrams to really explain, particularly to children that were coming through. And it was a brilliant place to meet people because people are out with their kids, and we actually recruited about 6 really good members of our energy team by doing this. People that we never thought lived in the village, people who had fabulous experience in renewable energy, who I never thought were here. So it's well worth doing that. We also used our village newsletter, which gets delivered to all the houses. And I keep drip feeding information every month about this so that people know what's happening and they're getting excited and they're getting ready to hopefully give us their money. We did our notice board, our website and our social media. And just again, lots and lots of meetings, lots of Zoom, because most of this was during COVID. So there was a lot of Zooming. But I just keep making, I make sure I keep everyone in the loop. And we got letters of support from Basingstoke-and-Deane Council and Hampshire as well, which I think were very useful for our application to show that we all want the same thing. The survey was really useful to, it's a good metric, and we also recorded how many people we spoke to and engaged with. We gave paper copies out in cafes, and also for people who not everyone here is on the internet. One thing that we were surprised about, we hadn't really thought, I thought everyone would have their phones with them and we could just get them to go to our website. Most people didn't. So we had to find other ways of collecting information so that we could email them the link, because the link's really complicated. So I think just think through the mechanics of how people are actually going to do it, because they all meant to, and then a lot of people had to be reminded with an email. So some key learning points were, Saturday mornings we found were really good. Have a really good display and good diagrams. Cafes were good. Yes, the metric of filling in the surveys was quite problematic. Having a community energy fund was a really big attraction to people. They really like the thought of a decentralized model where we can own our own energy, we can produce green energy, the business owner gets a discount, and there is a bit left over in the pot to do things like fuel poverty or other energy efficiency projects. And that was very attractive to the people as well as the landowners. and that's a key buy-in, because obviously you don't want them to go off and do this on their own. You want them to do it for the good of the community. Going forward, obviously we'll keep going with this. We'll be able to have mock-ups of the things that we actually are doing, and hopefully collect details for people to invest. We're creating obviously our own brand, so we can, and we've trained up 7 energy champions, so we can pull in that service into our BENCOM as well. So we're looking to do a share offer to raise the money, probably in the autumn. So we're planning to somehow try and encourage membership first of all, to gather contact details so we can mail them. I'm not really sure quite how that's going to work yet, but I will share that with you all when I know. So that's where we've got to. That's what we've done so far. Are there any questions?
There's been a question about your share investment, Alison, from Ian Davies. What's your minimum share investment and how much interest are you looking to pay?
Good point. We're not sure yet, either 50 or 100, because the next step for us is that we're getting our tenders back on this week. So we'll be looking at the designs, looking at the prices of the electricity, and basically running our model to see how much money will be left in the pot, and what do we need to pay back on the shares. I mean, how much do you need to offer? So we will have to play around with the variables, and you know, our accountant, we'll be talking to Michael basically about that with our accountant. But I mean, these are the things that we need answers to. So I'm not sure is the answer at the moment, but probably I don't know. We'll have to see how it looks. Some sites are better than others.
Liz?
Yes.
I've asked this question in the chat, but I was wondering if you've any advice on how you've been dealing with listed buildings that have lots of issues, in that, you know, trying to make them more energy efficient is an issue because local authorities won't allow them to do certain things to the roofs or the windows or the heating. And likewise, you know, sort of the landlords won't either. So have you had any experience in that direction?
We haven't, I'm afraid. I mean, the only, we have got some quite old buildings that we looked at, like our community centre, which actually possibly might be listed, that they were very keen to have solar. We found places to put it that wouldn't be too obtrusive, but it turned out that the roof was not in a great state, and they hardly use any electricity, so it didn't fit the post-fit model, unfortunately. But there is a grant, correct me if I'm right about this, Ollie, there's the SALIX grant, which is the decarbonisation of public buildings, which possibly that could be used.
I'll just chip in on that one. The SALIX still runs in Scotland and Wales, but is now ended in England. Just it's now.
Oh, that's a shame.
Public sector decarbonisation scheme, which has run a couple of times, but and that tends to, but that's very oversubscribed as well. But there's always possibilities. It's worth looking at. Nicola's covering some finding funding a bit later on in the session as well, so that might help.
I mean, simply, this wasn't sort of like an old church or anything. These are converted old hospitals of long standing, and are in no way, because I've taken it on with Winchester District to try and amend their sort of planning consents, amend them, and that's just not on until there's some different direction centrally, I suggest, from government in looking at the way that they contribute to listed buildings and their changes.
That's a really valid point, and you know, there's a number of issues around planning. I mean, one of the useful things about being part of the parish council is that obviously, you know, we have a planning committee, so we're a statutory consultee. So it's useful to get people ready for what's coming through if you do need planning permission. But there's all sorts of other things, like you might have a wind farm, it might be in an ANOB, and there's all sorts of issues around that. And I've tried to talk to the planners at Basingstoke, but at the moment I haven't managed to do that. But I think that's something that's going to have to change if we're going to make a success of this.
Well, certainly work hard with Winchester District Council, that's for sure. I am a parish councillor, by the way.
Any other questions?
You had a question from Vanessa Richards. If Vanessa would like to ask her question. When she's unmuted herself.
Sorry, I was in the wrong format to unmute myself. I was just going to ask Alison, how much money did you have to raise for your feasibility study?
I think we've received, we put in for 26,000.
Okay.
So that's. But one thing that a piece of learning from there is that there were things you don't necessarily have to go to both stages of the RCEF grant. We didn't realise that because there were 2 stages. We assumed everybody went through 2 stages, but the second stage is more about big planning permissions and wind farms and things. So actually, you can put in for quite a lot of things. We could have put in for more. So I think it's really important to be guided through that well. I think that's a piece of learning that we've had, because you can have project management, I think, and a standard share offer. We could put in for some other, obviously there's all the legal and the tax costs. Yeah, so absolutely. I think it's really important to be talked through the process well, because it's quite complicated.
Yeah, sorry, Alison, I'll jump in there with the Rural Community Energy Fund, which we're referring to as RCEF. So it's a £40,000 fund that communities can access for feasibility study. So you don't have to access all of the £40,000. And that provides technical support. So, for real, UK-wide technical organisations like Ricardo Engineering or Borough Happold or other community energy groups also that are very advanced can provide support, like the speakers this afternoon. And Basingstoke Energy Co-op have run a couple of RCEF projects as well with Community Energy South. And then what happens if it's feasible, if the project is feasible, because the scheme was developed to look at rural community energy. So, it's feasibility. Not all projects are feasible, but if it is feasible, then you can go to £100,000 funding to take you to planning. So, and that project is now being extended to September next year. So, it's something really that we see can be really supported across Hampshire. But don't sit on it for too long is the question. And use the community energy pathways as a support mechanism, because we're there to help you, and that's why Hampshire County Council have supported us to help you. So yeah.
If I may chip in, one of my slides does suggest if anyone wants some help with an RCEF bid, planning out their process, we are happy to arrange a support session dedicated to that, because I'm going to cover RCEF a little bit in my section later.
Thank you, Nicola. Perfect. So then we're going to have a cup of tea. I'm going to call a break. Say thank you very much to Alison. Great work in Overton. We're going to have a break. I think we've got 10 minutes. Come back in 10 minutes.
Brilliant.
Please, Ollie.
Yes,
I'm
please.
getting a lot of dreary background music. Can we remove it?
I think it's you. I'm not sure who said that, but I don't think anyone else is getting dreary background music.
Okay.
Can you raise your hand if you are getting dreary background music? Anybody else? No.
Right, David, you make yourself a cup of tea. You've got 15 minutes to sort your tea.
Turn up your hearing aids. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I can't come over to Old Basing and help.
You will sometime.
I hope so. But okay, so we'll come back at 15:15, but we'll stay online I'm going to put the kettle on. Please use the chat to interact.
Wish you were in the same office as me, Ollie, so you could put the kettle on for me as well.
Oh, sorry, Liz.
It's fine. I'll just have a little sulk. There's some interesting questions in here, and they're in the chat box, and some useful links. So just mentioning that for people. And I wonder, this is a question for you, Ollie, and just for anyone else who's listening, really, if this issue of getting projects through with, you know, unlisted buildings, I just wonder if that's something that quite a few people are interested in, and if we should do a session on it. If we've got people who've succeeded at getting projects on listed buildings or conservation area buildings, and if so, if we should do something, share that information with people. It's a question for Ollie, Michael and Nicola.
Oh, sorry, Liz, I was just thinking, at the last masterclass we did, the South Downs National Park planning team did say they were going to look at this because the question was raised then. And I remember looking up some planning guidance that developments were permitted as long as they weren't visible from a road to some extent.
Yes, that's exactly what Ian has said in the chat box. Yes, Michael.
It's Martin here. Yeah, we put some solar panels in on a grade 2 listed building in a conservation area. So it is possible.
Right.
It's just very hard work.
Yes, it is possible. The other thing is you can get some very slim double glazed panels for windows.
So it looks like there's quite a bit of experience at doing this within our community, and perhaps we should have a session on it, or a sort of mentoring session, or you know, get some way to share that experience with people who haven't done it.
Obviously, I have a selfish interest in this because I live in a village which has a lot of listed buildings, and it's causing problems because now it's so expensive for people to live in these apartments that it's giving us a very transient community because of the excessive prices. And as a village, you know, it would be good for us to look at this, but I know we will run into problems because we have 30% living in these types of properties in the community.
We did in Lewis, the Transition Town Lewis did a project on energy saving and I can't think what you call it, you know, energy saving is the only word I think, insulation. And a woman called Jill Goulder made a video about how she did some quite cheap energy saving in her listed building by using perspex and magnetic strips. So and it's on YouTube. And so if you look up Transition Town Lewis and Jill Goulder, I'll put it in the chat box. You know, it's a kind of cheap way for people to do a bit of insulation on listed buildings.
Try another source there would be secondary glazing.
Yes, that's what it is. It's a secondary glazing thing that she did, but it's a very affordable way of doing it.
But the leaseholders aren't allowed to do this because the developers put it into their contracts, and also, you know, having had discussions with Winchester District Council's planning department, they too are very anti.
Sounds like, it looks like perhaps you and David from Old Basing Stoke Parish Council or Old Basing PC should have a chat afterwards. And there were a couple of other people too who had some experience. It might be worth the.
Yes. Can I just double check, Liz? You said that there are lots of contacts in the chat. How do we get hold of those chats after we all sign off?
Oh, well, if you look in the chat box now, again, they're three little dots. They're very keen on these three little dots. You click on the three little dots and there's a thing that says save chat. So at the end of the call, you click on save chat and it will save all of the text to your computer.
Right, three little dots where it says view.
If you're in the chat box and next to file, it says to everyone, and then it says file, and then there's three little dots on the right.
All right, let me have a look. Chat. Chat.
Right at the bottom where it says type message here.
Yes.
Just above that on the right.
Three dots.
Well, right, okay, save chat. I can see that. Thank you. Got lots to save.
Yes, there is. There's always lots of information in these sessions. Ollie, I'm going to leave you in charge for a minute.
On the listed buildings, you know, it's very specific to your local planning authority as well. And I think what we're learning working with rural parishes is that you need to invest in a kind of housing stock analysis for your community. And that's not as complicated as you think. And but have a look at the community project that's happening, which is run by Esco, and they're actually doing a local area plan for a village where they're looking at all of the housing stock and what the solutions are, and then they're quantifying it all on a big scale and then going to the local authority and lobbying for it. Because you know, with net zero, we've got to look at it on a large scale. So I'll put it in the chat as well.
Okay, thank you.
Ollie, I'm going to launch the breakout rooms now so that in case there's any issues that need sorting out, I can sort them out while the next session's going on. So I'm just letting you know I'm going to launch the breakout rooms. So when people come back, they're not to join in, just, you know, if it says something on your screen about breakout rooms, they're not joining them yet, they're just open.
Okay, jolly good. Would it help if I shared my slide of the agenda post tea break?
Yep. Right, so I've opened the breakout rooms. Can you see that, Ollie? Or Jessie, can anyone see that I've opened the breakout rooms? I need Michael, I'll ask you to help me with this. Michael Beaven.
Yeah, I can see them. Hang on.
David's back.
The music's back. Maybe it's Michael.
No, it's not me. It's too coming for me.
Somebody suggested that David, perhaps you might have another web link open that's playing a tune. I don't know whether that's likely.
I have no idea where it comes from. I don't think I've got anything else operational.
The music seems to have stopped now.
No, still going on mine.
It's someone, Peter has suggested that the music is coming from your PC, David.
Maybe, but I have no idea where it comes from on my PC. It's certainly not anything I've got recorded or on a USB or anything of the sort.
Or a web page?
Not as far as I know. I don't think so. Anyway.
If you close all the other web pages, David, that might help.
I'll live with it.
Okay. Could I just check with somebody? Vanessa, could you just do me a favour, please? Because I can see you on screen. Might have to unmute yourself. Can you, I'm not encouraging anyone to do this yet, but can you see the breakout rooms, and are you able to put yourself in one if you wanted to?
Ooh,
yes, you can see the breakout room icon on the top left.
And it looks like you could put yourself in there, which is what you should be able to do, but earlier it was a bit odd.
Great.
It's for me, Liz.
What's that?
Noel here. It works for me, Liz. I've got.
Oh, yes, I know, but you're a co-host. You see, I want somebody. That's why I asked.
It's working for me. If you click on,
right, okay, good. So
click on breakout room, and then you get the choice of solar retrofit and community engagement.
Brilliant. Okay, so don't join yet.
Just the music.
I know. I do. I'm just going to mute you and see if it is you.
Okay. While we're on, I just had a chat with BES, and Salix is open, but it's been renamed. I'm just trying to find the link.
Interesting. Oh, that music has stopped since I've muted David. Sorry, David.
If I can find the link, I will share it.
Thank you. That would be great.
So, can you just tell us how to go through the get into the breakout room again, please?
Right, I need somebody I can't tell you because I see something different from you, and you're not going to join it yet.
On
At
the
the bottom,
icons, you should
at the
be.
bottom of the screen, there's a bar, and second from the right is 4 squares labeled breakout rooms. If you click on that, you should get a choice of 3 breakout rooms.
I'm on an iPad.
Well, if you can't join, I can always assign you, but so we'll deal with that later. But most people should be able to join, and the few who can't, I can put them there. Oh, right. Ollie, I'm going to hand over to you because I'm going to go and get a cup of tea.
Okay, I'm here, Liz. Yeah.
Okay. And it'll be, we've got 2 or 3 minutes and then it'll be Michael. There's lots of there are interesting conversations going on in the chat box.
Ollie, how does on the Sustainable Overton, people sign up for a share? What do they get as a payback, or do they get some payback? Do they get free electricity, or?
They would get a return, so they would get maybe 2% on their investment, or 3%, or whatever we decide we're going to pay.
Yeah. Okay.
That's right. So, David, a true blue community energy project. Let's say it's 100 kilowatts and it costs £100,000. Yeah. And so you raise some money. You look at. You basically tender the project to a contractor, a solar contractor. They give you the cost. You put it into a spreadsheet, and you look at over a 25-year period.
Yeah.
And and then basically some of the models is that the project is paid back over 25 years.
Right.
So that when you get to 25 years, the community owns the project outright and everyone's paid back. And then you can have shares. So like Overton said, £50 to £100 minimum share. Maximum share 50,000, I should think. And normally you give community share offers at the moment are around about 3%. They've been as high as 7% in the past. But, and you can redeem shares as well, but you can't transfer them.
But you've created tangible assets. What happens to those tangible assets at the end of the 25 years or whatever period?
They can either be taken down or they can continue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the idea is some of the community energy groups, they encourage shareholders to redeem as they go along, so that they own more of the scheme at the end. And then
David, it's Martin here. As we're in the same village, maybe I'm more than happy to meet for a pint in the Crown at some stage when we're allowed to.
Yeah.
And I'll take you all through this, because this is exactly the process I went through with Sustainable Overton and quite a few other local energy groups. And it's exactly the same questions. You
can get in, Martin, you can get in touch with me through the parish council.
I shall certainly do that, David. Look forward to that.
Thank you.
I'd love to do something in Old Basing.
And Steve Brown would be very interested as well.
Okay.
Who's another Old Basing man.
There we go. So in Old Basing, you've got Martin Heath, and he's one of the leading practitioners in the region. So good day for Old Basing.
Practitioner anyway.
Okay, so I'm going to kick off the session.
Ollie?
Yes.
One quick question, housekeeping question. You cannot save the chat on when you're on a phone. Can it be possible to actually send it out?
Yes, we can do that. We can send the chat out to people.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
It is very dense. It will look very dense.
What we will do as well is we'll take the main questions out of the chat and try and put the answers on our website so that it's there. But so yes, please leave your email in the chat if you can, Peter.
Can I also say that if people are asking questions in the chat, can they make sure that it's going to everyone rather than to a specific person? Because otherwise I will miss it. Because I think I've missed a couple of the questions that have been asked already because they've gone to a specific person.
So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Michael.
Okay. And then I'm not muted, thank you. So I will start just sharing screen. Right, hopefully everyone can see that. Anybody can? Opportunity in Hampshire, the big picture. Does anyone see this?
Yeah, all good.
Good, thank you. Just checking. So just a quick overview before we go into the sort of the more the case studies. Now I just got to work out how to move on. Okay, so the sixth carbon budget, which is the one of the steps we need to take to get to net zero, talks about four key steps. So take up low carbon solutions. So that could be switching your gas boiler to a ground source or an air source heat pump, switching your diesel car to a electric car, or even better, a cargo bike. Then you talk about expansion of low carbon energy supplies, so solar, wind, onshore wind is obviously more controversial than offshore because it's for some hydro, all the different areas. Reducing demand for carbon intensive activities, eating less meat, although the government is very keen not to tell you they want you to do that. Home insulation, so cutting down carbon, so cutting down your energy that's wasted. And then land and greenhouse removal, so changing farm practices, better soil conservation, growing more woodland. But one of the key things about all of these areas is that the things that were technical solutions in the background have all been done. And most of these things actually are about lots of changes, lots of people, some over quite a long period. And so community engagement is vital for all of these. And that's one of the pictures where community energy is really useful. The Community Energy England have got a 2030 vision. And there's a lot in there, but there are a few things coming in there. So democratic control, communities empowered to lead. So things like if a wind turbine is being built, it's one that's actually the community are happy that is one that there will benefit for them. Job creation. So as being the things like putting solar on, you're looking at supporting local suppliers. The affordable bills and just transition are important parts. So basically, there are people who have got jobs which are carbon intensive, maybe quite low waged and insecure, and actually what's important to do is to make sure you actually, as part of the green economy, we are shifting to jobs which actually support those people who are going to so that the changes happen unequally, and community energy again can be part of helping to make sure that the changes is fair for everybody. Or so there is different elements of that, and there's just picking up at the moment. There's been the parliamentary inquiry has just been going on, the Energy Environmental Audit Committee, and they've basically been looking at the benefits of community energy. This was evidence that came in from Community Energy England again, and the key things. So community energy has had with the end of the feed-in tariff, subsidies for solar ending, that stalled things, but actually there's a lot of ambition to grow. So 12 to 20 times by 2030, powering 2 million homes, 8,700 jobs. And again, talking about community energy not just talking about, okay, we want to sort of put solar panels on a building. We also want to think about, if we put solar panels on the building, how do we engage with people who use the building to see how they can make the best use of that energy, and see what options there are to say, oh, well, we're starting talking to you about that, or as Alison was saying, oh, we can't put solar on your building, but maybe there's something else we can do, which will actually which can cut carbon. And also because community energy, partly because the government sort of a lot of some of the easy things that community energy were doing, or not easy, but putting solar on is a more manageable process. Some of the community energy organisations having to think about how you do things differently. So the Riding Sunbeams project to supplying power to the railway, that is not something that would have happened if it hadn't been for the fact that community organisations wanted to basically put solar in somewhere, and there wasn't a demand, and then they thought, well, what can we do with that? So you see lots of things happening which are about making change, and this is part of the big picture about what community energy can do. Looking at in Hampshire, so this is from the Hampshire strategy. Currently, or 2019, it says the green economy is about worth £1 billion, just over £1 billion. By 2050, in 30 years' time, they're expecting it to grow to 33 billion, 33.25 billion. That's an increase of 30 times or so, and you can see the sort of the different scale of that. And talking about that again, the size of the 2050 green workforce. 160,000 people employed in Hampshire in 30 years' time, which again, I mean, that's not going to be something I'm going to be working in, but it's good to know that the the younger generation there are jobs going to be there coming up, because again, at the moment, everyone's been concerned about the impact of the pandemic and what the jobs young people. These are some of the jobs that will be needed and will be people are interested in doing. And again, just picking up some of the change from the strategy that Hampshire talking about, they're talking about within the next 9 years now, 80,000 homes having solid wall insulation. Now, they also talk about 160,000 having a new condensing boiler, which I'm not sure if they mean that's a gas boiler, because I would be surprised about that. But they are talking about, there's lots of work around energy efficiency. It's assuming that there's a 3% year-on-year increase in renewables as a result of the strategy, which means that in 10 years' time, there'll be 30% more renewable energy in Hampshire than there is now. Or if they're talking about compound growth, it'd be more like 40%. And again, this is not from their strategy, but it's things that we know is that community energy generates 12 to 13 times the social and community benefit of commercial installations. That's because if you buy solar from a commercial installer, they'll come in, put the solar on, they may show you how to use it, and they'll go away again. If it stops working, they may not come back and tell you it's not working. We've heard of examples of schools which have had solar installed and the solar's not been working, and nobody in the schools knew that. Community energy organisations, our motivation is about cutting carbon. So if a solar panel, if our solar is not working, we want to know that, because actually what that means is we are wasting the opportunity. And again, if we can encourage people to use local businesses and keep the money in the local economy, that's really helpful. And with community shares, which we've mentioned, that basically means that local people are investing in renewable energy. They are getting probably a better return than if they're investing in a bank, and the profits aren't then going out to a organisation in the city, they're going back to the local community. And community energy, fully poverty work, again, 9-to-1 social return on investment. That's often funded by grants, because actually it's hard to do as a commercial model. But those are the kind of things that community energy does. And this is this is really some of the points that actually what you're talking about is you talk about community energy ownership. There's co-benefits. So again, if you're looking at solar farms, community ownership of that might mean that actually there's more focus on saying what can we do to ensure that nature's we're tackling the environmental crisis as well, and look at rewilding and carbon using the land for carbon saving as well. Local investment in tackling climate change, as I mentioned, community shares often pay higher rates than always nearly pay the higher rates than in a bank, and the money is going to good use. The just transition, we talked about a bit, that there's more jobs locally, less fuel poverty. And one of the key things about community energy is it can also be tackling inequality. So you may have a position where basically an area is actually would not have the money to invest in a carbon saving, but it might have so it couldn't raise the capital itself, but by using the community energy organisation and using community shares, it could then bring in investment from across the country and able to do that. And also community organisations are often focused on making sure that climate change is tackled where in the most effective way, which could mean support tackling people or helping people who wouldn't otherwise be able to do that. So it's actually filling in the gaps. And again, there's a positive action and connected communities. As I think Martin has been clearly demonstrating, talking about, we've had a few comments about this and saying, well, how can we do this? And we already had a conversation saying, well, look, let's meet up outside of this meeting and talk it through. And you start building connections across the community, and you start building a more connected and more social capital. And again, there is I think the benefit in terms of actually being able to tackle the climate crisis, and actually know that you're doing something positive is, I think, from my own personal experience, I would certainly say it's highly important, and it falls within the sort of the range of responses, from Extinction Rebellion to parliamentary lobbying to whatever. But actually, it's an approach that actually means people can make action in their own communities. Which is a point about the warning, is you may be in the long term. I think I got involved in about 2012, so it's nearly getting on for nearly 10 years or so, and I've got a good few years in it for me yet, but it's actually been a really positive experience. So that's what I think some of the sort of the summary of the big picture for community energy in Hampshire is. So I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thank you very much, Michael. So that's an overview of the opportunity in Hampshire. I think what we'll do is we'll go straight on to the next speaker. So thank you, Michael. And then we can pick out in the breakout rooms, which Michael will be in later. Yeah. And it's great to see the chat going on in the side. It's really full of information, so well done. So I'm going to pass on to Noel Lambert and Chis Rigby from the Big Solar Co-op, which is a national scheme and some of the pioneers of community energy, and that have put together Share Energy, that have put together the Big Solar Co-op. So let's see how they can help us in Hampshire.
Great, thank you. Hi, I've just had a child come home from school, so you might get interrupted again, but I'll try and carry on anyway. Yeah. Thanks for inviting us to speak today. I'm going to do a 10-minute presentation. I think I just want to say first, it's really lovely to be in this company. I always find it very uplifting to be in these kind of conversations, and it's just, yeah, that we're all kind of heading in the same direction. So yes, the Big Solar Co-op. Okay, and also to Michael, I think you've just paved the way beautifully for why community energy is great. And yeah, so the Big Solar Co-op is incubated by Share Energy. Share Energy is a co-op that has been around. We've just celebrated our 10th birthday. I haven't been with them that long. I've been on this project about 1.5 years. And yeah, the Big Solar Co-op is really a response to the subsidies being taken away. So no more fits. What do we do now? Sorry, next slide. So I think the first thing to say is why go for a community rooftop solar project, not something else, you know, wind, or there are different returns in different areas, but this is what we've decided to focus on. And really this comes down to this scenario whereby 1.4% of the UK land area is buildings. And there's a potential there for over 100 gigawatts, yet less than 5 gigawatts has been built. So that's a great opportunity there. And I think it's worth mentioning as well that although our project is national and we're talking about a lot of local opportunities today, there is no competition. There are plenty of buildings to go round. And what we are looking at is bigger buildings. We're not trying to take other people's projects. There's no tribalism here. So how do we build the rest? How do we empower community solar as well to keep going without subsidies? So if we were to start today, what would community solar look like? Because in 2010, we could say we were just concerned. We were concerned citizens. Some of us really knew something was drastically wrong, but now it's absolutely in the mainstream. We are in a climate crisis. So coming back to Share Energy, the Big Solar Co-op, we sort of are under the wing of Share Energy, and this, like I said, this need was identified because Share Energy already were running many small solar energy co-ops, and they had projects that had been stymied by the end of FITS. So that's when John Halley and Etty George began sort of thinking, how do we get around this? So with those, we started working on this new approach, which we think it needs to be financially self-sustaining. So at the moment, the Big Solar Co-op, and for the first 3 years of its life, is going to be grant funded. But long term, it needs to not be dependent on subsidies or grants. How do we build something that is resilient to change in the political atmosphere? And we think it has to be ambitious in scale. Climate change is huge, global. We need to be ambitious. We need to push it up a few notches or lots. So this becomes this idea of the Big Solar Co-op, which is one large solar co-op. It's open to anybody across the UK, and we are intending to own thousands of solar arrays. That's how we think it needs to work. We also know that it can't all be done by paid staff, and so that just doesn't stack up, unfortunately. So we have chosen to go for a model where we're powered by volunteers. We train people up and so on, and we support them with experienced support staff. So at the moment, that's myself and Chis Rigby, who's here today. And we believe that it's needed to be a grassroots community project. So it's co-owned by its activists and investing members. So again, why one big co-op? You know, why so big? And we think that by being big, we can engage and empower more people. This is a mass movement. We need it to be bigger. We think that we can lower the barriers to entry, and so create space for minority groups who are not traditionally well represented in this sector. And we think that by being this big, we can scale up, like I said, to the level of the climate crisis. The other benefits of that are to spread the risk. So we can be more attractive to investors by spreading risk across multiple sites. So if 1 fails, 2 fails, 50 fail in 1,000 arrays, 1,000 scenarios where we have arrays, this is less of a problem than if we're a small group and we have 5 and 2 fail. We can bring huge efficiencies by centralizing tasks. So rather than many small groups spending a huge amount of volunteer time running their own AGMs and websites and share offers and so on, we can do that in one place. So a lot of that is my job. Yeah, I do the sort of comms and so on and tool building for the Big Solar Co-op. And we can also reduce costs. So we, at the moment, in our pioneer phase, we are rolling out and looking to work with local installers. But in the longer term, we may, this is undecided entirely, but we're going to see if we can bring further efficiencies and cost reductions by having our own design and installation teams. And by being this big, we can reach a much wider range of sites. So we still need to cherry pick a bit, but we can start going on much wider sites than a wider range of sites than you could in a local or smaller group, or if you're a commercial installer or a commercial developer, I mean. So how do different stakeholders interact with us? So activists, these are volunteers, activists. We flip between terms because different people like to be called different things, but volunteer activists can come into the Big Solar Co-op and focus on what suits them best. So you can actually come in as somebody wanting to find sites in your local area, and we can help you develop those. You might wish to come in as somebody with specialist knowledge or a special skill set, like technology side of things, GIS mapping. You might have great experience and knowledge around legal agreements or PPAs or how to get your foot in the door of universities. There are myriad skills that we can use within the co-op and share that knowledge between people and bring everything together. So we support this process, myself and Chris and John Halley, through running a dedicated forum. So I run this on Slack, and this is where volunteers can come in and communicate with each other directly. They can share files, they can, very easily and in a very centralized way, very quickly have asynchronous communications about getting a site through. So you might start off with designing the array, and you can get your feedback in there, and you can really push it forward and do everything you need about that one site within one channel on the forum. And you can also take part in the general channels, which are, possibly sharing topical information or technical tips. So we also have knowledge sharing on regular calls. So we have one tomorrow at 2 o'clock. If anyone wants to join us, we call it our kind of ask us anything hour. And people can come in and just find out how the project's going, how they can interact with it. They can share their experience of what's worked for them on different projects, and it's pretty open, so you can join us on that if you like. Information about that is on our website. We also do targeted training webinars, so these are every quarter, and we ran one in January, which was the finding solar sites. One of our volunteers, Gordon Coppock, ran that one for us, and we've just done one on approaching host sites as well. So these are around the Big Solar Co-op model, but they can still be useful for other people. So we don't bar anybody entry to those. And we'll be running another one in June, I believe. And the last point here about mutual support is through access to our shared tools. So like I've described the forum already, but we are training people in designing arrays on some open source software, Open Solar. And we also have our legal agreements. We make those available to people if we're starting to progress sites. We work with them on those. And our business model in general, we are working on that all the time and can share that with other people. So, and I think a point to make there is that this sounds like a lot, but you can come in and you can just do a bit. You don't have to do all of this. You can come in and just design an array, get a bit of skill and move along if you want. But we'd like you to come back, but it all counts. It all works. For host sites, how their interaction with us works by, quite often they're self-referring. They're some of our best leads. We're hopefully signing a PPA with one this week, or rather a legal agreement with one this week, but they are self-referring, or they may come to us through the volunteer base, or indeed we might find them ourselves. We find that the host sites like the Big Solar Co-op because we are ethical, we are community energy, we're going to be funded by a community share offer. And it's a financially sound business proposition. We're transparent, there's no hard sell, we're not a dodgy rent-a-roof, we just are what we say we are, it's all up front. We're offering flexible leases and transparent legal terms, which are all pretty much available, in simple terms, they're available on our website as well. The wider public can come and join us, as I've said, as volunteers, or they can come in and invest. We hope to run the share offer towards the end of this year. That will be a rolling share offer because we're looking to obviously fund a huge number of installs. And we're hoping that we'll be able to offer a fixed rate of around 4%. That's our aim. We feel that that's a fair rate of return. And as Michael said, something we can really offer people is the opportunity to be part of a movement, something that makes you feel good, you know, something you can be part of, feel like you're making some difference. So that's, yeah, an interesting bit of coming to join us. So what can we work on now in terms of sites? To be honest, the margins are slim. It's not easy without fits, and we've been honing our list of what we can work on and our parameters of what will fit with the business model, what is feasible. And this is not prescriptive. This is a yardstick that I've got up here. So things like factories, care homes, leisure centres, server farms, public buildings. Schools I'll leave out for the moment, they're a bit tricky, but we would consider schools as well. We need to have something like a tennis court size roof space. We need a lot of energy to be used on site. Definitely over 50% of the energy that we generate needs to be used on the site for it to stack up. By exporting to the grid, we earn very little. That doesn't work for us at this time. And we need ideally a low risk of change of use. We have built into our business model as a risk what happens if the panels need to be taken down and either deployed to another building or to an entirely different site. We have got that in the model, but it's not obviously ideal if we have to chop and change a lot, and that has a cost associated with it. So that's what we're really looking for, things in that kind of ballpark. But in the longer term, the more sites we have, the more we can push up this bell curve that you see on the slide in front of you. And we want to do the harder sites. This is all about stepping up to climate change. So we want to be able to save this carbon. We want to be able to do the more difficult sites, and the bigger our portfolio becomes, the more possible that is. So that's why we call it pushing up the bell curve. So where are we so far? We are about halfway through the project in terms of the funded 3-year project. And we have trained over 40 volunteers in site finding, owner negotiations and solar design. I've run 2 internships for students from Kiel, which was very interesting, running that throughout COVID entirely remotely. And we supported their early careers, and one of them has gone on to have a really plum job within the industry, which is great to see. We've assessed over 250 sites so far and are having new sites coming in all the time. And as I just said earlier, we're beginning to move our first sites, hopefully to conversion and then onwards towards completion. Just this week and last week, we're doing our first agreements being sent out. And so, yeah, we're in this pioneer phase, or we called it the pioneer phase, and we had some theories about how this would work. We thought that we would be sort of scooping up some local energy groups that had failed projects. We thought they would be the primary groups coming to us and wanting support. And we aimed to do that for 5 sites in 5 locations with 5 groups. But actually, we had some surprise learnings, those being that actually we're very appealing to commercials. And we've had, big companies coming directly to us and asking us to give them proposals. And the other thing that we've had to pivot very quickly around was COVID-19. So I was expecting, when I was hired, to be running lots of regional events and meeting lots of people in person. I've hardly met anybody, and I've hardly done any site visits over the last year. But we are a digital first project. My background is very much in technical tools and agile working and so on. So in fact, it's been a really interesting time to have to go full remote and run our internships that way. All our volunteer training has been done that way, and it works well, and it sort of fast forwarded us to become even more efficient. So please do come and talk to us if you are climate concerned groups or individuals. If you're the only greenie in the village, please do come and speak to us. There's lots of other people who think the same way as you, and they may already be in our volunteer base for the Big Solar Co-op. And it's lovely to see people connecting in our forum and so on, who are sometimes geographically close and sometimes connected by an interest. And as we've seen today, you know, people in, is it Old Basing, are going to meet up for a pint and talk about, their aims for renewable energy. So those things happen within the Big Solar Co-op as well. Host sites. Sorry?
No, I'm going to have to nudge you along so that we can for Martin next.
No
Yeah.
problem. So yes, come and talk to us if you are any of the people on that slide. And the last slide is just a picture of us, John Halley, Chris Rigby, me, and that's our contact details. Please do come and speak to us. Okay, that's done now.
Thank you very much, Noel. Fantastic. And Share Energy have been a great resource. And like I say, they've been going for 10 years. So this is what we need to try and do, is match make new groups or people that want to start out so that it's not so technical. So, you know, Share Energy have found their way, as well as Basingstoke Energy Co-op and Anthony Woolhouse down in West Solent, you know, have got great knowledge. So that's what this is all about. And we'll find a way for linking up Big Solar Co-op through the Pathways programme. Great. Next, I'm going to pass on immediately to Martin Heath. And we're probably about 5 minutes over, which is fine because it can eat out into breakout room time. So Martin, I'll be watching the clock.
Thanks, Ollie. I hope you can see the screen.
Yes, I can see that. Could you put it onto presentation mode?
I am just about to do that when I find the right little button, and it'll be there in front of you.
That's
yeah, look, it's so great to see so many people on the call. And I think, as Noel was just saying, you know, I've just met 2 other people in my village that I didn't know were interested in community energy. So, you know, this thing really works, and it's great to see it. Anyway, a bit of background about me. I think I was once described as a veteran of the renewable energy industry. I think I wrote my first research paper in renewables in 1980. I think it's a little unfair, but anyway, I've been around in the industry for quite some time, but then went off and pursued a career elsewhere, but now come back, I suppose, to my first love. Just a little bit about a lot of what I'm going to cover in the next 15 minutes is much about science, a lot about engineering, because that's my background. I'm a scientist by background. I spent my career in engineering, but don't be scared of it. It's great stuff. We need to understand just you know, how energy works, where carbon emissions come from before we can start resolving some of the issues we face, pretty critical issues. So without much ado, let's move on. So I'm part of Basingstoke Energy Services Co-op. We are an energy services company. We've been going since 2011. Yeah, perhaps a danger that we are beginning to know what we're talking about now. We work a lot with a partner company called Your Energy Your Way, who is a community energy group based in southwest London. And what we're really about, I think, as it says on that box there, I mean, our job is to work with other co-ops, other community energy groups and businesses to reduce carbon emissions and to provide a sustainable financial return. So this is equally importantly that we're putting high quality equipment and systems in place, but it's about also making a financial return as well. So we spend quite a lot of time with people understanding cash flows, yields, revenues, as much as we do with understanding the technology. But fundamentally what we're really about, and I think we've got a passion for this, me and my fellow directors, we're about training the next generation of renewable engineers and technicians, and to provide high quality jobs, highly skilled, well-paid jobs to local people. And I think that's probably drives us more than anything else. I've been lucky in my career to have some excellent training, to work for some great companies, and we just want to give something back. Now, we work with a lot of community energy groups. Some of them are mentioned there. Some of them have already been talked about. We do a lot of work with Made Energy, Cookmere Solar, White Energy, Hampshire Renewable Energy Co-op. Riding sunbeams is, I think, something we're very proud of as well. And I know Ollie's already mentioned that. So, I mean, fundamentally, what we do is, if you like, the hard work. We get down on roofs into muddy trenches. We actually put these panels on the roof. You'll see there's a picture, actually, that's me cleaning solar panels as part of the Riding Sunbeams project in Aldershot. There's a picture of the local technical college there, Peter Simmons College in Winchester. We've just installed a great big system on a local commercial warehouse, 100 kilowatts on a new build. So we don't just do community energy groups, we do work with big businesses as well. And it's not just about solar. There's a heat pump there. Happens to be my heat pump in my back garden, but we don't only do solar. So I wanted to talk about decarbonising buildings, and it's probably only sort of 6 things I wanted to people to take away from this. It's about insulation, it's about ventilation, it's about draft proofing, it's about electrification in the end, is that we're going to have to move all of our heating systems away from fossil fuels into renewable electrics. We've got to talk about the whole house, the whole building. You can't just do one part of a building and hope the other parts of the building will react. They won't. It's a bit like squeezing a balloon. You put some insulation in somewhere else, and somewhere else the heat will leak out. And my own experience, actually, I've just finished retrofitting my own house. It's hard, expensive, and it's disruptive. But when we get down to the basic science, it's simply about reducing the energy input into a building and then replacing that energy input with a low carbon source. So if we remember those 6 things out of this, I think we've done well. So I've only got 10 minutes left, actually, so I'm going to go through this at some speed. We've got the 40 minutes question and answer session, breakout session afterwards, where I hope we can get into a little bit more detail and talk about individual experiences, individual buildings, and just how it really works. So perhaps the first question is, why bother decarbonising buildings? Well, that's because a great chunk of all the greenhouse gases emissions come out of or produced in the UK come from our buildings. Now, they come from various elements of the building, various parts of the life stage of the building. So it's not all about what happens to a building once it's built. We've got to understand how much carbon, embedded carbon, goes into building a building. It's a lot. Well, you've got to understand what happens to the end of life of the building when we repurpose it and recycle it. But I really want to spend the next 10 minutes talking about that stage B, the commercial operation, because that's where, as it says in the pie chart there, that's where most of the greenhouse gases are going to come from and will come from over the next 20, 30, 40 years. Most of the buildings that we're going to be living in until 2050 have already been built. And what we've really got to focus on is reducing the amount of carbon emissions from those buildings. But one thing I will say is the other thing we have got to do, absolutely critically, is to make sure not one single building in the UK is built that's not carbon neutral from today. So there's one thing we can all do, is just lobby our local councils and say to them, we do not want to see another building built that is not carbon neutral, because we're just adding to the problem. Anyway, a little bit of physics, sorry about that, but it's very simple. This is how a building works. We put energy into a building, a bit like filling a bath with water. That energy comes from burning fossil fuels, or it comes from electricity. Mainly in the UK, it comes from burning gas in our boilers. That goes into the building, and all of that heat and all of that energy leaks out. And it leaks out through conduction, through the walls, through the floor, through the ceiling, through the windows. Surprising large amounts leaks out through air. That's just ventilation and infiltration, drafts. And of course, a little bit seeps out in the hot water that goes down our drains. But the fundamental parts are around conduction and air losses. And those are the areas we need to focus on initially. So as we put more, if we put more energy in than the building is leaking out, the building heats up. If we put less energy in and more energy out, the building cools down. And if they're in balance, well, the building stays at a nice constant temperature, which is what we all want. But fundamentally, energy in is from heating and power, the electricity we use. The sun delivers quite a lot as well, but we ignore that for now because that gets really complicated. And it escapes through those 3 routes that I've already talked about: conduction, ventilation, infiltration. And how much energy we need to put into a building really depends on how cold or how warm it is outside and how the air flows in and out of the building. So in a nutshell, that's how buildings work. And our job is either to reduce the amount of energy that goes in and or reduce the amount of energy that comes out and replace that energy that does come in from renewable resources. So, in a nutshell, we could probably all go on and move on to the next presentation. But let me just say a little bit more. That's the theory. So let's now look at just some real buildings. This is an example, actually part of a SALAX funded project we did for a local council, looking at a number of their buildings, and it looks at how energy flows through a building. So you start on the left, the total amount of energy that goes into a building. That's mainly produced from fossil fuels at the moment, from gas, from oil, from coal. A surprising number of buildings in Hampshire are still heated by coal, by the way, and a huge number by oil, which is incredibly carbon intensive. And that energy is either in the form of electricity or gas or oil or coal. And as you can see there, that energy then flows into the building to provide useful services: heating water, heating the air, cooking, lighting, and driving our appliances. All of that energy ends up as heat. It's just the basic law of thermodynamics. It all ends up in heat. And that heat leaks out of the building. And it leaks out in several different ways. Infiltration is just basically the leaks that every building has. So through the walls, through holes in the wall, holes in the ceiling, through holes all over the place. And it's a surprising large amount in some buildings, not particularly in this one. Then there's ventilation. Buildings have to breathe. We have to breathe. We need to get rid of water vapor, otherwise we get condensation and damp. So ventilation is important, but every time a cubic meter of air leaves a building, it actually has to be replaced by a cold cubic meter of air coming from the outside, and you've lost the heat that's in it. And then of course there's the classic ways of conduction, either through the walls, through the ceilings, through the windows and the floor. And for this particular project, we looked at the building in great detail and began to understand exactly where those heat flows are. And then, of course, once you know that, you can begin to understand how we can control those heat flows and actually start to reduce them. So that was the building as it was when we got there. This is when we began to think about, well, what can we do about that? Well, critically, the very first things we can do is to put in some more insulation to prevent that conduction leaking out of the building. So make sure the external walls are better insulated, the ceilings, the windows and the floor. Make sure infiltration is controlled, draft proofing, simple as that. Huge amounts of energy lost to that, and ventilation. And we're very keen on something called mechanical ventilation and heat recovery, which basically extracts the heat out of the air that's leaving a building and puts it back in the building. So that's pretty critical. But then once you've got those things under control, the next thing to do, once you've now reduced the energy requirement of the building, as it says on the left-hand side of this diagram, is start you putting in the energy from renewable resources. Heat pumps are probably the best way we can go around that at the moment. So they're driven by renewable electricity. For every unit of electricity we put into a heat pump, we get 3 or 4 units, and in some instances more, of heat, which can then be fed into the building. So this is particularly where we were trying to get to, and that's what we're really aiming for. And I think before Ollie tells me, I've only got a couple of minutes left now, so I'll move on. So, I mean, what are the key steps? Well, perhaps a little repetitively, but these are the things I think we need to take away. Very first thing to do, insulate. And when you've done some insulation, do a little bit more of insulation. And then when you've done that, just do a little bit more insulation, because that is by far the best thing and most cost-effective thing that we can do in any building. Insulate it better than now. Even the most modern buildings built to the most modern, the highest of our building standards in the UK, which by the way are appallingly bad compared with the rest of Europe, can do with more insulation. Tackle drafts and leaks. Now again, even new buildings built to the most modern standards are incredibly leaky. Air goes out of these buildings all over the place, through doors, through window frames, through holes in the ceiling, holes in the walls. We've really got to get that under control, because that's a complete waste. But buildings do need to have ventilation. We need to breathe. Buildings need to get rid of water vapor and steam and water. So we have to have a ventilation, but we've got to have a ventilation strategy that makes sense, and we've got to have a ventilation strategy that it takes the heat back out before we pump that hot, warm air into the atmosphere and suck in lots of cold stuff. Now, once we've done that, the next step becomes relatively simple. Then, and only then, start thinking about replacing whatever heat inputs that go into the building with renewables or low carbon. And fundamentally, there are other means, but fundamentally, the two key areas are either through individual heat pumps, which I think is all of us can do on an individual basis, replacing our oil burners, replacing our gas burners, or through heat networks. And I think that's where community energy actually does play a big role, in making sure that we can start to build those heat networks, either for homes or even for commercial buildings as well. But I suppose the lesson I've learned from having done this with our customers and our clients, and actually done it on my own home, deep retrofitting is very time consuming. It's very disruptive. It's next to impossible to live in a home that's being deeply retrofitted, and it is expensive. And from what I've learned, the construction industry is only just beginning to learn how to do this stuff. but it is a huge opportunity, absolutely huge. And that's where I come back to that bit of opportunity to create jobs, the next generation of technicians and engineers who can actually start to do this stuff. And perhaps just to finish there, I mean, it is a quote I often use, and I've used it with a couple of community energy groups on this call. You know, we should never doubt how a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. In my view, that's the only thing that ever has. And I think we're the small group of thoughtful, committed citizens, and we can probably change the world. So I'll leave it there. Hopefully we can get a little bit more detail in the breakout session, and just say that if there's any questions, I can take them now, but I guess Ollie probably wants to get us back on track on time-wise. So sorry that was rapid, but hopefully useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. That's fantastic. So it's technical, but can be demystified. And that's why we do these things together. So in my group, where I live in my village, we formed a community energy group with lots of different abilities and interests and capabilities. So luckily, I have a technical director in my group that looks after the technical elements, and I look after the communications. So it's just to take on that, but there are lots of different elements with heat to consider, and community wide as well. So thank you very much, Martin. And you'll be in the chat, and you've got a breakout room coming up. So I'm just going to pass on to the next speaker, which is the Esco in a box. Are you there, Alex, I believe?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Just bear with me a second. How does that look?
Yeah, great, Alex. I'll just remind you to keep an eye on your time, and then we can. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. Well, you know, lovely to be speaking to you all, and thanks very much for having me. This is something slightly different, I suppose, but hopefully of interest. My name's Alex Rathmell. I'm an engineer, but there's virtually no engineering in this presentation. So sorry, Martin, but I enjoyed your presentation. I do a lot of work in residential retrofit as well, but that's not what this is about. Yeah, well, I have sort of two jobs. I'm managing director for EP Connect, and I'll say more about that in a second. I'm also head of consultancy for a company called EnergyPro, and we're a specialist consultancy that focuses mostly on energy efficiency finance. But EP Connect is the new venture that we're launching that's related to this project called Esco in a Box, which I've been very kindly invited to talk to you about. So what we're talking about here in this presentation is energy efficiency for businesses. So we're leaving behind the residential setting. We're leaving behind, to some extent, the development of community solar projects, although it's all interrelated. And we're thinking about businesses, particularly small and medium enterprises, SMEs, in a local area, that under a scenario of reaching net zero will need to take substantial steps to tackle their demand for energy, and then, you know, fully decarbonize the remaining demand for energy. And I think it's fair to say that we are some way off the point at which they look likely to do that. So we've developed this concept called Esco in a Box, which is a platform, which is a very overused word, but it's a set of tools and a software platform and a set of standard contracts, etc., for helping businesses in an area to become more energy efficient and potentially to adopt things like rooftop solar or electric vehicle charging points. And to do that on a commercial basis, in the sense that it creates a self-sustaining, self-funded energy services company that effectively charges a small fee for arranging projects and working with local contractors to deliver them. So the idea is to make these initiatives robust to changes in grant support. So they may need a grant to get up and running, but then over time they can become self-funding. So what I wanted to do today was just tell you a little bit about the pilot project that we've been doing on this in Oxfordshire, the development of Esco in a box, and really just kind of set out the thinking behind it. And of course, we are interested in discussions about where else in the country we can try and get this up and running. We've had a very good response so far, I have to say, since we first sort of started talking about this a few months ago. So it's been really encouraging to see that, and you know, hope that continues. So this is it in a nutshell. An operating system is my phrase for it, for delivering impactful energy saving projects for businesses by setting up a one-stop shop and then becoming break even in a few years. We've developed it in partnership with Low Carbon Hub in Oxford, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and Oxford Brookes University. And we've developed the system using a grant from BES over the course of the last 18 months. And that grant program is focused squarely on the challenge of getting SMEs to do energy efficiency projects. So let's think about businesses for a second. There's a lot of them. Most businesses by number are SMEs. Most of them are very firmly rooted in their local area. So they have local suppliers, local customers, local owners, local staff. So their reputation matters to them in a local area, and you can have conversations with them, in the pub or on the golf course, or or wherever. There are local routes, or at church, we found to be a very useful one. So that like any aspect of community energy, there are local routes that you can use to have conversations with them. The main thing about them is that they've done virtually nothing as a cohort. I'll just skip that one because I don't need to go into that. They've done virtually nothing as a in general. Obviously, there are exceptions and some very, very, very good ones. But in general, SMEs have done as close to zero on energy efficiency and clean energy as makes no difference, really. And it's not really a criticism, it's just that they have to focus on running their businesses and doing things that are core business focused, and so it doesn't allow a lot of time to worry about some of these other things. They might worry about them in a personal setting, but small businesses often don't get chance to worry about much other than where the next sales are coming from. And they don't experience the same regulatory pressures or investor pressures as large businesses do. So they're not really being kind of leaned on in the same way. Obviously, we expect that might change over time, but at the moment, we're almost at sort of square zero with a lot of small businesses, and they need solutions that are very, very easy to adopt and very de-risked. So with guaranteed outcomes. They need help in navigating local supply chains and finding contractors that can do the work and that they can trust. The problem is that that's a very specialist service, or it can be, in the way that it's done for larger businesses. And so, those large Escos, if you like, are not really interested in the SME sector because they can't make any money. The projects are too fragmented and too small. So, it's a sector that's not really served by existing business models. So our idea was to kind of glue together the opportunity that has been presented by the boom in interest in community energy, and using kind of values-led, if that's not too sort of cynical a way of describing it, but values-led channels to reach out to people who care about this stuff, to couple that with what we know as a company about the way that large Escos work. So all of our senior consultants have all established and or run energy services businesses, in the private sector or to serve public sector clients. And so we wanted to apply some of that know-how to this and try a new way of getting to market with energy efficiency services that SMEs can say yes to, essentially. And we think the answer to that is to do it on a local level, and to have people providing these services and selling them, if you like, that are, that have some connection to the people they're selling to. So that's what Esco in a box is. It's a box full of a virtual box. It's not a physical box, but a virtual box full of resources to allow a team of people in, let's say, a city area or a county level to work with businesses in their area to decarbonise. So it's a combination of advice, but it's primarily arranging projects, helping to arrange finance for those projects and earning a fee from doing that. So the client is not paying a fee in cash, but it's part of the financed project that's being arranged. And the idea is that we license that system out to these, teams of people, and we earn a small margin on the license fee for the underlying platform, and that's the basis on which we're trying to do it. We actually have 2 Escos now. So our first one is Energy Solutions Oxfordshire, and so that's hosted by Low Carbon Hub and Oxford Brookes, and they partnered with us on the BES grant that allowed us to develop this system. We now also have an Esco in Kenya. So we're finding that there's an international opportunity for this as well. I have to say slightly by accident, but we're delighted that we've been funded to develop a similar approach in Kenya. So looking at the food and agriculture sector, the tea sector actually primarily in Kenya, to try and embed energy efficiency there. So working with a local firm. So it shows that it's both local and global, if you like, as a challenge and also as an opportunity. So the box contains hopefully everything that a team needs to mobilize these services. So it's everything around the branding and positioning. So if you look at the website that Energy Solutions Oxfordshire have developed, that gives you an idea of the kind of look and feel. Other branding can be used, but we've designed that quite carefully to try and resonate at a local level while looking very professional and hopefully quite slick. So all of the stuff about understanding the market, what SMEs are in your area, we've sort of put all that into a toolkit. The sort of meat of the system is the workflow and CRM, customer relationship management and project management software that we've developed, because we felt that the existing solutions were not really suitable for this application, and that all links to a set of client-facing documents and other resources that are used in taking the client through the development of a project and then the deployment of that project. And within that is a system for recruiting and vetting local contractors to deliver the work. So it's important to say that Escos in our system don't deliver any work themselves. They use local labour to do that work. And that's a key value add that the Escos offer, because they're helping the client, the SME. They're just shortcutting that whole process of having to work out, which trustworthy tradespeople can do as a heat pump. Which can be really difficult and very daunting actually for a small business, which is one reason why things tend not to happen. You can cut through all of that by going to the one-stop shop. So we've defined in key technology areas, what quality attributes to look for, and the Esco will help the client to sign off the project once it's been proved to be of a good standard. Finance, so we have a panel of lenders who are able to finance projects. So these are very straightforward hire purchases for the equipment, so it's very familiar to the client. There are lots of exotic ways of doing Esco finance, which we've largely ignored for the purposes of this, for the reason that they just don't work at the SME level. But we are interested in maybe innovating in this area in future. But I think this is something that, if you can do energy efficiency and finance it on the same basis as you get your cars or your photocopiers, that would seem to be a sensible place to start. But of course, it's perfectly fine if the client finds the funds or is able to use an existing credit line to do this work. That's absolutely fine as well. The model can cope with either scenario. There's a set of standardized legal agreements that make the system work that we've developed, which was by far the most expensive part of the funded project that we've been doing. But I think there's a lot of innovation in there, particularly around how we protect the interests of the client and help protect them against, maybe against poor standards or technology that doesn't work together properly. And then, the idea is that we provide a certain amount of support to our community of Escos over time as it grows, just from our professional backgrounds, I suppose. Nearly finished. The process is one that will be familiar to anybody that's done any work on buildings, essentially. So the idea is that Esco's offer a feasibility study for free, or free at the point of delivery, as a way to engage the client and to tell them some useful information about where their energy goes. There are lots of schemes around the country that already offer funded energy efficiency audits, and in fact we've been able to pair this up with one in Oxfordshire, so that there's some advantages to doing that. And then from that point forward, you're looking for some commitment from the client. So hopefully you've convinced them that they want to go down this route. They want to make an investment, or allow some work to go ahead. So from that point forward, the sort of more serious engineering kicks in. So we're looking for some commitment from the client from that point. So if they don't go ahead with the project, they cover the cost of the engineering, essentially. The energy services agreement guarantees them a level of energy savings that will exceed any repayments that they need to make on the finance. Project gets implemented. That's all project managed and coordinated by the Esco. And then M&V and O&M are just some baffling industry acronyms. Measurement and verification, which is how much have you saved, and O&M is operations and maintenance. So looking after the assets that have gone in, LED lighting, drives, controls, heat pumps, that sort of thing, looking after those for their operational life. The Esco will make sure that there's a contract in place with contractors to look after the client over that time. So we're looking for other partners around the country. There's a set of skills required to do it, and I think it lends itself to having some involvement from the local authority. We will be launching another Esco later this year with a local enterprise partnership. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to name yet, but it's really exciting, and that shows that that's a sort of entity that can also take on this kind of work. But essentially, it sort of doesn't matter who's behind the scenes, provided they bring together the right skills and competencies. And we want it to sit at one remove from the local authorities anyway, because we want this to be able to be sort of nimble and independent, and also not subject to all the procurement requirements that local authorities have, so that you can use local contractors and you don't have to open the floodgates to national contractors. We want to keep the economic value of this within the local area. So essentially we need project managers, technical staff, and people that can sell. And I think the role of the community energy sector, as Low Carbon Hub have demonstrated, is absolutely indispensable, in the sense that that's offering a fresh way to have a conversation about an SME's environmental commitments, appealing to them on a kind of human level, as it were. So some of the projects that our friends in Oxfordshire are doing have been,
Alex, sorry, I'm going to have to wrap you up now, if that's all right.
That's
sorry.
Fine.
I think you're going to go into a breakout room.
Okay.
And your slides will be shared, because if not, we're going to run out of time.
Oh, right. Sorry, I didn't. Okay.
No, I should have warned you. Sorry.
Sorry, I was waiting for a warning or a hoot.
No, well, here's your warning. It's
a very final warning. Okay. Well, sorry to.
Final warning. Carry on.
No, that's fine. I'll wrap it up there. But suffice to say, it's not something that a community energy group could take on its own. It's a bigger fish than that. But I think the community energy sector, community energy groups as a partner in these new ventures, I think have a really important role to play. So we think that's a really important conversation for us to be having, and a really good route to look at. So yeah, I'll happy to stick around and join the chat for a bit, if that's useful. And thanks again for having
definitely.
us.
Well, we've got some breakout rooms, Alex. So this is when we've looked at, just to kind of summarize this last session, when we've looked at Hampshire and the pathways, we've had communities come forward very early on in the process over the last 6 months, and existing communities, and now we expect other communities to come forward. And we want to try and make it as easy as possible. And I think there's a case of looking at community energy at a local level, so your own community like Overton, or, you know, all of your own communities. And then Old Basing, definitely. And then maybe looking at a Hampshire-wide approach. And that's where Esco in a Box and Martin and Big Solar Coop can come in. And that's kind of why we brought them into this discussion. So thank you very much, guys. So Liz, if you're going to, are you going to take us through the breakout rooms?
So we've got 3 breakout rooms, which you should all be able to see. If you go to the bottom of your screen and click on more, I think, I'll just check with maybe Michael, who's not hosting, because you see something different from me. On the bottom, you see more, and you can join. There are 3 different breakout rooms. There's one on solar post PV, post fits, which is being run by Anthony Woolhouse with the support of Noel and Chris from Big Solar Co-op. The second is Energy Saving and Retrofit, which is being run by Martin Heath and supported by Michael. And the third is Getting Community Buy-in from Alison, which is being supported by Nicola Davidson. Now, we really don't have very much time because we've gone so over time. So you've got 15 minutes. So join your breakout rooms now, guys. Join them now. Anyone who's left behind and can't join, I can allocate you. But most of you should be able to join. It looks like people are disappearing as we speak.
I don't think I have them all.
You don't think you can?
I don't have them all.
You don't have them all? Are you on an iPad or something?
I'm on a Mac.
Yeah, I'm on a Mac as well. I don't have it.
Okay, well, I will move the people who can't go. So, Vanessa, which group do you want to join?
Basingstoke Energy Co-op, please.
Missed you. Basing. It's retro. Is that the retrofit?
Retrofit, yeah.
Okay, right. Who else needs to be allocated because they can't do it themselves?
Me, please. I'm on a Mac as well.
You need to say your name.
Rebecca.
Rebecca, where do you want to go, Rebecca?
Community engagement, please.
Okay.
Next. Yeah, and me, Anna.
Okay.
Anna Meller.
Oh, someone.
What's that?
Right, Anna, for some reason I can't see you. It looks like you. Oh, there you are. Where do you want to go, Anna?
Community engagement.
Okay. Anyone else need to be allocated? Say your name.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
Kitty, Wanston Parish Council, community engagement, please.
Okay.
Hi, Liz. It's Graham from Copythorne. Can I go to energy, please?
Solar.
Energy savings and retro.
Oh, I put you in the wrong one. Hang on a minute. You might find you'll have to come back to me in a minute. I'll move you again. Oh, where are you?
Don't worry, I'll go where you sent me.
Right, who else can't get yourself somewhere? Sue, where do you want to go? Sue, you have to unmute yourself. So while you do that, Alison, where do you want to go?
I go to community, please.
You want to go to
community engagement, please.
Yeah, okay.
Alison,
thank you.
Liz, Anthony Woolhouse hasn't been allocated yet.
Okay, thank you. He has been allocated. We've just had difficulty. He is allocated to the room he needs to go to.
Oh, he's gone, and now Martin Heath hasn't been allocated either.
Oh yeah, Martin's been allocated. Oh no, he hasn't. You're right. He needs to be there. I thought he must have left and rejoined.
We're waiting for you, Martin.
Okay. Ian, you're not muted, so I'll move you. Where do you want to go, Ian?
With Martin, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's retrofit. Tony, where do you want to go?
With Martin, retrofit.
Okay. Who have we got left? Alex, you have to unmute yourself. So, Richard, while we're waiting for Martin, where do you want to go?
With Martin, please. Retrofit.
Okay.
Leave Alex with me, can you?
Okay, I'll leave Alex with you. So, Sue's gone. Oh no, Sue, you're still there, right? Where do you want to go to?
Community energy, please.
Community engagement.
Engagement, yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Sarah Skinner, where do you want to go?
I don't know what the title was. It's not the community energy one. What are the other two?
One on solar PV post fit, or there's retrofit.
Solar PV post fit, please.
Okay.
Good choice.
You should be disappearing any minute now.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we've got a Sarah and an S.
Yes, but well, Sarah's just gone. S is muted and video off, so we don't know. S, if you want to go somewhere, do let me know. You have to unmute yourself.
So I put her in a waiting room. I did it.
You put her in a waiting room.
Yeah, well done. So just looking at timescales before I just jump in with Alex.
Where are we? So they're supposed to finish at 16:40, and then it's Nicola.
And then we go from here. So yeah, let's try and bring them in at just after 16:40. Yeah.
I'll bring them in just before 16:40.
Yeah, or just after, because Nicola and Michael can go a bit quicker, can't they? Yeah, just before.
Yeah.
You do it on time.
I've been
Alex, sorry if I cut you off then.
No, that's okay.
So what funding suits your community energy project? Because as we've discovered, they're all different. We've got charitable funding, which is funding linked to funders' objectives, such as the relief of poverty, education, environment, and local area of benefit. This isn't always something that's suitable for community energy projects, but you may find it does suit yours. Charitable trusts can be found online. You can Google them, you can check the lottery, and by searching the Charity Commission website. And tips for searching the website, because it's a big beast. Select advanced search, environment classification, makes grants to organisations, and then choose the area relevant to you. And those notes will be, all of my notes that I'm saying will be in my presentation in the notes section. So I'm going a bit fast, I know. Next is public sector funding. So government grants, such as the Public Sector Decarbonisation Scheme, Green Home Grants, and SIL. So government grants are often large scale, and with short bidding windows, we're finding the windows shorter than ever these days. Parishes may like to consider low interest rate borrowing from the Public Works Loan Board. I think this is still an option, but only for projects operating within the actual parish. And I know Salix lending was a recent option, and that became, I think, the Public Sector Decarbonisation Scheme. It's closed at the moment, but it may reopen. And SIL, I've got a slide on that shortly. Community funding, such as shares, bonds, tax relief, and community fundraising. So community fundraising usually applies to income generating projects. So that's generation, not conservation. It's not so easy these days since the feed-in tariff is gone, but projects can still be viable depending on their costs, site simplicity, the scale, etc. And one of the things really usefully covered in the big solar presentation. Bonds are long-term borrowing options to consider. The Greater South East Energy Hub is looking at municipal bonds at the moment. They're currently offered by Abundance and the UK Municipal Bonds Agency, so watch that space for that. Tax relief, here I've got the acronyms SITR and SEIS. They are the Social Investment Tax Relief and the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme. These may still be available for energy saving projects, but not for generation projects. They're complicated, but still worth trying to get your head around. You never know when things might change. Then there's general fundraising campaigns. They're not usually popular for community energy projects, but it may fit what you're trying to do, so don't rule them out. And then there's commercial funding, usually for large projects that have good security of income. For example, developers might like to partner with you in order to bring benefit and gain public support. So what works best for you depends on several things. What you're trying to achieve. It might be cutting emissions, income to repay investors, energy saving support for those on low income. We can't usually meet all the objectives in one project, especially since the feed-in tariff is gone. So we advise it's best to separate them out and prioritise them. Go one at a time if you can. What works best depends on your community buy-in. For example, if you're looking for charitable trust funding, such as the lottery, for example, their motto is very much people in the lead. They look for proper local community ownership and drive from the very start. So demonstrating significant community engagement and participation. And this makes it easier to run by sharing the workload, a better fit for the need you're trying to address, and helps with future engagement, especially if you want to try and raise money from people. What works best depends on your structure. Charitable trusts will often only fund charities, but some community groups too. Then there's the Public Works Loan Board, only available through councils, parish councils, for example. What works best in terms of your level of expertise and commitment in the group? Are you in it for the long haul, or are you in it for quick wins for the environment? It can be better to do several small projects, each with impact. And the stage you're at, whether it's feasibility or delivery. Feasibility for major projects can often be funded through the Rural Community Energy Fund, RCEF, and that's available through the local economic partnerships. I've got a slide on that next. And then check out sources of funding on the CES website and other places, like the Directory of Social Change. So feasibility stage, we've mentioned RCEF funding quite a bit. In Hampshire, there are 2 LEP organisations, and these organisations are the ones that administer this RCEF funding. So we've got the Greater South East Energy Hub called Enterprise M3, and their RCEF deadlines are in August, November and Feb. The Solent LEP, their deadlines are in June, September and December, so you've still got plenty of time left to get your feasibility study planned out. Again, check the CES database for other feasibility stage funding options, because RCEF isn't the only one. So this is the government-funded programme supporting rural communities to develop rural energy projects. Stage 1 grants can be up to 40 grand for a feasibility study, and stage 2 can be up to 100,000 for business development and planning of schemes that are indeed feasibility. But as was mentioned earlier, you don't need to go through stage 2. You could just do what Made Energy did and go for the stage 1 grant and then launch your project. And this kind of funding helps you get ready to actually implement your project. And I've got more on this shortly. If you need to find out more about RCEF, comment on the chat box and we can arrange a dedicated session for you, because we're doing quite a lot of these and becoming quite familiar, and they can be quite daunting if you're new, especially if you've already got a lot on your plate developing your group. Delivery stage funding, for example, Community Infrastructure Levy funding, often known as CIL. This is a charge levied by local authorities on new local developments. Income is spent on infrastructure to support sustainable growth, and it helps to underpin local plans. Areas with neighbourhood plans have an advantage here. What you need to get is support from your parish council, district council, etc., and if possible, any match funding. And ensure your project is ready to go before you apply for CIL funding. So it's a really good sort of follow on from the RCEF feasibility. So section 106 was the old format and it's still used inside development areas. And when I say infrastructure projects, that normally includes permanent environmental projects for leisure, environment, facilities, transport, for example. And if CIL is relevant for your project, you may need to combine it with other funds. Now, repaying investors. If you've created a scheme where you have generated an investment opportunity and people have invested in helping to purchase your capital, you can potentially earn income through generation. Many community organisations own the renewable energy installations and sell the energy to businesses or organisations where the project is located, like schools buying the energy from panels that are placed on the roof. To raise funds, you will need to secure a legal agreement with the energy user through a power purchase agreement and produce a share offer document. And that allows people to invest in a project and receive interest. And you'll need legal support. Past energy generating projects used the feed-in tariff and renewable heat incentive and investor tax relief. So it was a lot easier in the old days. But again, as I've mentioned, scale can reduce the cost and other factors as well, such as ground-mounted solar as opposed to roof-mounted solar. But they've each got their own complications. Oops, get the next one. And a small case study on Made Energy, which is, I'm one of the 9 directors of Made Energy alongside Michael Beaven, who you may be more familiar with. He's my partner in providing you with mentoring support through the Pathways programme. Our directors are a mix of people, and this is really interesting, I think, a mix of people who were interested and then became investors, and investors who became interested in where their money was going. And that is a result of nurturing as well, nurturing good publicity track record, for example. So you can see it takes time. We're a very small community benefit society spanning parts of East Berkshire and North Surrey. So while we're very small, we have a geography equivalent to 2 district council areas. So we have amassed our directors from quite a wide area. And I realised that for a parish area, it can be quite challenging to try and find that expertise and commitment within a smaller population. And ours is a much greater population size. So I always say, think about bringing people in from outside your area. They may not be local, but they may have skills that are valuable to you and may have an interest in a specific technology type that you want to develop. So we established during the FIT era, delivering solar projects. And before the renewable heat incentive closed, we applied for RCEF funding for a study to explore the facility size, capability, integration with other energy supply that exists, technical reports, risk assessment, district network operator links, you'll hear DNO as an acronym there, and permissions. And lastly, project management, financial modelling, marketing, and share offer creation. And we did that all for under 20k outlay, because by that time we had amassed quite a lot of capability ourselves. So we did quite a lot of it off our own backs as volunteers. Then we issued a share offer, and that raised almost 200k. The project is now ready to launch. And my last slide is a little diagram. You'll see here is the Thames Valley Athletic Centre building, huge building, run off 8 very old gas boilers. They were failing and couldn't afford to replace them. We have since put solar on this roof as well. We're going to put the ground source heat pump here and pipe it into the building, and that will complement the heat provided by one remaining gas boiler. And that's it. I hope I have wrapped it up quickly within the time. Ollie, I hope that's all right.
That's lovely. And it's lovely to see a project at the end, Nicola.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. I can draw breath now.
Yeah, take a breath. And that's what we want to do through the Pathways programme. Although it feels very complicated, you know, once you get grounded and you realise that there's lots of support out there and you grow a group, then, you know, there is a lot of support. So, and we're just I'm gonna invite Michael to join us just to wrap up.
I need to try myself, unmute myself, don't I, first? And I'm just going to share screen. It is and yeah, so very basically just a summary. So next steps, I haven't really got much to say. It is all on this one slide. So the Pathways programme funded by Hampshire County Council. There's a resource pack which we've developed, which has got a lot of information, a lot more to go into. That's on the Community Energy South website. The masterclass slides and the recording will be available as well, and we will also look at answering any questions in the chat which haven't yet been answered. So hopefully that if there's things you wanted to know, we will see if we can find an answer, and if we can't find an answer, we'll try and find somebody who can find you the answer. Hampshire County Council is currently funding Community Energy South to provide support to 5 communities. So currently 4 we're supporting a Sustainable Overton, which Alison Alison spoke. Energy Alton, Hambledon Greening Campaign, and Greener Brockenhurst. And there is one group left, which potentially for support. So if anybody, any of the areas are interested, then please get in touch and we will talk to you and to see if you be the best use of if that support is appropriate or not. And we are now just beginning to think about a pilot project with Overton again, because that they have done so well, and thinking about how that could be taken further. Emerging themes that have come up with off-gas homes, decarbonising community buildings, large-scale renewables and how their community energy fits with them. And then again, a thing that came up quite a lot today was sharing special experience and resources. So like, how would you retrofit a grade 1 listed building, or those kind of areas. If the project goes well and there is demand, then we are hoping or expecting Hampshire County Council to continue project in 2022. So there are currently 5 groups supported. If there are groups from outside, from other areas who might want to continue, might want support, and no space is available, then again get in touch, and it may be there's be support available in later on, either this year or next year or something. And again, we're only working with 5 groups, and that's nowhere near all of Hampshire. So there is a lot of demand to work. And if you want to connect, the mentors at communityenergysouth.org, that's the email address. That's shared between myself and Nicola, who Nicola mentioned she works in the South Downs area, and I work for that, working at Hampshire area, and we will do our best to help you in whichever way we can, and in combination with the whole team at Community Energy South. And that is it. And then I think basically the only other thing is just to say thank you. It's been a really good session today, and there will we hope it will inspire you to go on and get involved in community energy, and or do more in community energy for those of you who already started.